Hi, everybody. I went through this whole thing and I realized I didn't push play. So here we go again. Today is Halloween. And when I was a kid, this used to be a really good day. It's not to me anymore. It has too many bad memories. Today, I actually had to get my kitten, out of the ceiling, which was very interesting. A year ago today, I stood in a room with family as my uncle, who was like a second father, told all of us that the cancer had spread to his bones and to the point that they were stopping treatment. And on November 12th, he actually passed away. But that's not the things I want to talk about right now. The thing I want to talk about is what happened to me 13 years ago. 13 years ago was a Halloween night, and I worked third shift in a convenience store. I I had five police officers who worked the same shift as me. And when you work in a place where it's common to be robbed, and you work on third shift, it's really a good thing for you to make friends with your police officers because if something happens, they're the ones that are going to be coming to you. And for me, that was very important because I have um, like panic issues and things, and I needed to trust somebody who was coming to me. So I mean, I knew all about their lives and the things that they did, their wives and kids and interest and everything. But anyway, on that Halloween, I had already worked 14 days straight, and I knew I was supposed to be off for the next 2 days, and somebody needed to cover the shift, and it was either me, excuse me, or the guy that worked there who had no common sense at all. And so I worked that shift. Um, 4 times that night, I had told somebody to take their mask off or leave my store because their Halloween mask, because that was our policy. About 2:30 in the morning, all five of my police officers came at one time, which surprised me. But all five of my police officers came at one time, and they were in the parking lot, and they were laughing and cutting up at me and picking on me because people were getting sick in my parking lot, and I was having to clean that mess up. Apparently, Halloween is a night for people to party. Um, but my police officer had just left, and the front of my store was glass, and we had two open doors, and in the back of my store, part of it was glass, but there was one door, and on third shift, we always locked that door because you couldn't see who was coming in that door very well at night, and so we always locked that door, but um, there were cameras and mirrors and things in places that you could see if you were at that door. You could see what was going on in your store. And our policy was to smoke out that door. So I had gone out that door and I was smoking my cigarette. About halfway through my cigarette, I got this really, really sick feeling in my stomach. And I just knew I felt like something was wrong. And so I put my cigarette out halfway and I pulled the door to and I turned the doorknob as far as I could to lock it, which I had never done before. Um, and when I turned around to look up, I saw Gray coming across the front of the store. And I realized something was seriously wrong because you always saw skin, hair, hat, hoodie, you always saw something except for just Gray. And so I started going toward the front of the store, and he caught me at the second aisle. There was a man dressed in black clothes with a gray ski mask on his face. My first instinct was to tell him to take his mask off, as I had done 4 times before. And then I looked down his hand and saw the gun. I put my hands up and I said, "Whatever you want." And in my mind, I said, "Lord, please help me." So he told me to go around the counter, and I knew that I was going to have to turn my back on him to go around the counter. That made me nervous. But when I turned to go, I felt him push the gun in my back pretty hard, and I went around the corner, and I hit the no sell button, and I stepped back with my hands again like you're trained to do. and a wave of heat came over me from my feet all the way to the top of my head, just in a wave. And I know now that that's adrenaline, but at the time I didn't. I thought, God, please just don't let me pass out. And he told me to put the money in the bag, and I did. And he told me to open the second register, which was broke. And I said, it's broke, but here's the drawer. I reached under the counter on top of the safe and pulled the drawer out and stuck it up there. And he told me to put the money in the bag, so I did. And he told me to open the safe, and I told him I didn't have keys for it. I couldn't open the safe. If he had told me to drop money, I would have had to drop money, but there was a 15-minute delay, so he would have only got one. And you're trained to drop the ones first, so they don't get as much. But he didn't do that. He asked me where my tapes were, and honestly, in that moment, I couldn't have told you. I knew every other minute where they were, but in that moment, if he had put the gun to my head and said, "Tell me where your tapes are, or I'm going to shoot you," he would have had to shoot me because I had no idea. They were in a locked case, so I couldn't have gotten them anyway. But in that moment, I didn't know. The next thing he asked me was, "Where are your cameras?" And at this point, I was pretty irritated and annoyed and upset. And so my second smart comment, I didn't tell you about the first one, but my second smart comment to him was, "You idiot, look above your head." And at this point, I was mad. I was really mad, and I wanted him out of my store. He told me that to let him out the door. So I said, okay. Actually, I said just a minute. He went to the door and he was messing with the door, and because I had locked it so far, he had a hard time getting it unlocked. And I said, let me do it for you, And when he turned around and looked at me, he had pulled his ski mask up, but I cannot tell you any part of his features. I couldn't then, I can't now. I cannot tell you one detail except for his eyes. He left. I pulled the door to. I locked it. I was making mental notes of what he was wearing, what direction he went. I ran to the front. I locked the door. I came around the corner. I had to hunt for the phone. It was in the place that it always was on third shift, but I couldn't. Like I was at this point in such a panic, in such an adrenaline-filled state. I didn't know where the phone was, but I picked up the phone and I called 911. And the dispatch officer, I said, I am at such and such store. I'm not gonna tell you the name. I'm at such and such store in front of the Walmart because there was two of us within a mile on the same road. And I said I've been robbed at gunpoint. And she said the first thing she said was, "Are you okay?" And I said, "Yes, I'm fine." I said, "He's going toward," and I told the direction he was going toward. I told details of what he was wearing, down to the type of color of his shoes. I then realized, I was writing this down too. Then I realized that, my whole front of my store is glass, and it is not bulletproof. It is just glass. It's not bulletproof. And so I ducked behind the counter. I told her what I was doing. I could see my cameras. And I told her, when an officer gets to me, you're going to have to tell them to come down the side of the building just enough for my camera to pick them up. And so they did. And I got off the phone with her, went to the door. Charlie, one of my favorite officers, got to me first. He told me to unlock the door, and I did. He told me to push the door glass, not the door frame. So I did, and when I did, he stuck his foot in and pulled the door out and swooshed me out of the building, pretty much, with the phone in my hand still. And I sat down on the sidewalk, and I was answering a few questions for him and going over details of what he looked like as far as I can remember. And when I looked up, there was tape everywhere, all over the store. There was all over the parking lot. There was police officers and detectives, and just it was chaotic. There was just people everywhere. My regular customers were starting to come in because at this point it was about 3:20 in the morning, and so my regular customers were starting to come in. My vendors were coming in, and they were all being stopped at the yellow tape, and they wanted to know, most of them wanted to know one question, and that was, which one was on duty. And all they would tell them was, it's female. And so a couple of them actually I had to go talk to on the line because they wouldn't leave until they knew I was okay. They told me after everything was over that I could go home, but I refused. I finished cleaning my store because he interrupted that time. I did my own paperwork to know how much money he took, because to me he took it from me. He didn't take it from the store. He took it from me because I was the one on duty. I was the one with the gun pointed to me. I was there. So he took it from me. $243.13. It's a number stuck in my head. Won't ever go away, I don't think. It's been 13 years and it's still there as if it was, yesterday. Um, I went home. I slept. I was fine. I got up. My roommate and I were going to go get something to eat. 2 miles from my store, I realized what was going on and what had happened. And I laid my head back against the back of the back of the seat. And my roommate was driving. She said, "Are you okay?" And I said, "No, I'm not." And she said, "Do you want to call my boss and my boss's name?" And I said, "No." She said, "Do you want to call?" And gave her boss's name. And I said, "No." She said, "You want to go see mom," which was her mom. And I said, "Yeah." And I laid my head over on her shoulder and I squalled like a baby because I realized what had just happened. I realized how close I was to being hurt or could have been hurt. This was prior to me actually knowing Jesus as my Lord and Savior. And I can think about the things that have happened to me. I didn't ask to be robbed. I didn't put myself really in a situation that I could be robbed, except for I was working. But when I was in trouble, the person that I called to was God, and God answered. And now I can look back over my life at all the situations that are in my life, good and bad, and I can see God's hand and protection for my life over that situation. Even if it was my stupidity that put me in that situation to begin with. Even if it was my bad decisions, God still protected my life. It doesn't mean that I didn't get hurt. It doesn't mean that I wasn't betrayed. It doesn't mean that something bad didn't happen to me. But God protected my life. But I didn't see that at the time. It took me a long time. It's taken me, some time to get used to the idea that God protected me, and He protected me when I didn't even want anything to do with Him. But when I was in a situation where I was about to be hurt, I already knew who to go to. I knew to call out for God. And so that was something that I wanted to talk about. I don't know what this is for. I don't know who this is for. I've made lots and lots of bad decisions in my life. I've made decisions that have put me in situations that nobody should ever be in. Things have happened to me. Physically, yes, I might be hurt. Emotionally, yes, I might be hurt. I might have scars from those things, but I take my part of the blame in that too. Had I not done those things, I wouldn't have been in those situations. I'm not saying that it's right. Please don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that it's right. I'm really not. No person should be beat or raped or anything like that. No, nobody. It doesn't matter who you are or what you've done, what you dress like, how you act or anything. But nobody should be robbed when you're trying to work, But it happens. And it happens to people who are Christian. It happens to people who are not. Um, it happens. It's life. But anyway, I have no idea where I was going with this. So anyway, in a few hours, I have to go with my aunt to do trunk or treat. She's using my trunk. But I would much rather just be in my house with the doors locked today. Today is just, I hate this day. But no, I don't hate this day. I hate what this day stands for in my mind. I am blessed that God allowed me to be alive today, that He allowed me to get my cat out of the ceiling, to talk to some great friends, to say some, to pray to Him about some requests that are on my heart. It's warm and pretty today. I'm alive and breathing, and so I hate what this day stands for to me, but I love that I'm here today. And I think there's a reason that I'm sharing this story today, and sorry for rambling, but it was what was on my heart. I'll see you later.